Are there some myths and misconceptions that you have as a single woman that is probably derailing your dating life? Let's talk about 7 of them and see if you're in that category. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr, where our mission is in our name. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. And so we pray, we plan, and we prepare each episode so that you, our audience, can access wisdom for your life, your love, and your marriage. Thank you so much for your continued support of this podcast. Now, if you are a supporter, you know that we are on hiatus and this is a recorded video, but we will be back live in 3 more weeks. So we hope that you appreciate the value that we bring to you even during our break time. And don't keep that value to yourself. If you enjoy this program and are getting value, please like, share, hit that thumbs up button, share, comment, subscribe, so that we can get more people to know about what we're sharing. I just want to remind you, if you are a single woman, and really if you're anybody, join our free, fulfilled, and fabulous challenge to help you create a life of joy in your singleness, so you never settle for less in your relationships. And let me just share with you that even if you are married, this is something that you can do to help improve the joy that you experience as an individual, because even if you're married, you're still a person. And so I know that a lot of married women could use, and even men as well. This is not, it's not just for women, though that is our, primary audience here. So we'd love for you to pick that up. And that, if you click the link in the description, which is Fulfilled and Fabulous, you will get access to that free challenge. And this month, we are launching our first 3-day Destined to Love virtual retreat to help you go deep on helping. This is for single women struggling with loneliness, lack of purpose, and not really prepared for marriage. We are excited about this opportunity to spend these 3 days pouring into you. And if this is you and you want to create a life of joy now, invest in yourself and register for the 3-day Destined to Love virtual retreat at the link in the description. And finally, do only weak women need friends? If you saw our episode last Tuesday, you know that we have, first of all, we don't believe that. We believe actually strong women need community more so. But we are having an interest meeting because we have started an actual official membership community called Praying Sisters. And we are having an interest meeting for those who want to find out more about it, see if it's a community that they can vibe with, that they can grow with particularly, and that they might be interested in being a part of. We're only accepting 5 women at this time. We really only can because we want you to have a very personalized experience. And if it's just kind of open to, hundreds of people, then you lose that. So we want to kind of integrate you into the community help you to get to know people personally, and then, we'll grow as the Lord directs us in the future. There is a Zoom link in the description as well. If you click on that, you will need to register just so we know that you're coming. But that's just your name and your email address. So today, let's jump into our conversation for today. 7 myths and misconceptions that single women actually do really believe. And I wanted to talk about this because I think that as a single woman myself, I have held some of these. I don't anymore. I have just a different perspective of my singleness since I turned 40. And I believe I told that in an episode. So I'll link it up here in the for you to watch. And, obviously there's a fuller story to that. And I may even tell that on another episode while we're on hiatus. But I have held some of these myths or misconceptions. But I would just want to disavow women of them because they're really kind of silly. They're deep, but when you kind of strip them apart, they really don't really hold water. And so we want to share those with you and try to disavow you of those myths. I am just by myself today. And so you just get to hear me share and talk about these different things. So the first myth that we want to talk about is I need a relationship to be happy and fulfilled. So this is not an uncommon belief that happiness and fulfillment are only achievable through being in a romantic relationship. And particularly in the faith community, it's surprisingly more pervasive because church tends to glorify, magnify, uplift, celebrate, dare I say, even idolize marriage. And so those of us who are not in that category are constantly being asked when we're going to be in that category. And so there's this idea that being single and happy are mutually exclusive. Like you cannot do both at the same time. Of course, in movies and in culture too, every movie has a love story. Even if it's like a horror movie, there's a love story. And so movies and media and even friends and family can kind of instill this idea in us as single people, not just single women, but particularly single women, because I don't think single men get the same kind of heat about being single as single women do. Though, who are we trying to marry? Single men. So this is very pervasive, and this can lead to fear of being alone and this cycle of unhealthy relationship choices. I'm in a Facebook group for singles and of faith, and I'm not going to mention the group, but someone posted just today about how, terribly sad and lonely and miserable. And I mean, it felt almost like she was in a state of depression because she did not have a husband and children as she expected. And like, I get it. Now, the thing is, like, she's only like 30 something. But at 30 something, I had similar feelings. I'm not joking about that. I'm just realizing when I can look back in hindsight, 20 plus years ago, and realize that this is not something, first of all, that it has eluded you if it hasn't happened by 30, but also that your life can be happy and fulfilling without being married and having children. It's a great part of life. It's something that God created and He blessed, but it is not a necessity for life to be happy. And in fact, Adam, even though it was a short period of time, because they were both created on the sixth day, Adam was doing his thing. He was given purpose. He was given an assignment. He was given a home. He was given all of these things that God gave him to prepare him for life, as well as when he would bring a spouse. But he wasn't like knowing that he needed that until he saw the animals. And he didn't even, I don't even know that he really understood what he needed. He just saw that there were matching sets. There's a, the bear had a male and a female, and all the animals had male and female, the lion, the tiger, the bear, oh my. And that's when he noticed, but God put him in that situation to notice, and then he supplied that need. But Adam was whole and complete before Eve came along. She was brought to help him in his purpose, in his journey, but he wasn't half a person waiting for another half of a person. Relationships obviously can enhance life, but they are not the sole source of joy. I think it's important for us to really embrace self-love, personal growth, other relationships, and find fulfillment, because the reality is, if God has not brought you a spouse or brought you to a spouse yet, and he has a plan for you, then doesn't it fit that that's part of his plan? Now, and this is going to go a little bit on a rabbit hole. Maybe God did bring you someone and you rejected them because they weren't what you thought they should be or looked or whatever. Then that's kind of, it doesn't mean that you're a lost cause, but I'm saying if we really want God to do this for us, then we have to be open to what he brings to our lives. But the thing that is really important is that if you are happy when you're single, you're gonna be miserable when you're married. That is just the truth. And really, research shows that there's a little bit of a bump, especially for women. There's a little bit of a bump, particularly, actually, the research shows for women. There's a bump when you get married because you've fulfilled that dream you've had. You got the wedding, you got the whole thing and whatever. There's a bump in happiness, but you go back to your previous state of emotional happiness and joy and stability and all of that after a little while being married. So if you're not happy when you're single, he can't do it. He's not going to change it. And so we actually need to work on being happy and fulfilled on our own, so that we are actually even more likely to attract a healthy, loving relationship. And we'll talk about some of those challenges, I think, later in the program. And, my tagline is helping you create a life you love. But, one thing that I've kind of said is that I want to help single women find joy in their solo journey so they never settle for less in their relationships. And so we're going to talk about settling later. But I just wanted to say that happiness and fulfillment are not found in a person, at least not in a human. They're found in God, and then God living out his life and his purpose and his plans in you. Number 2, I'm going to spend too much time on these because these are really important. If I'm still single, something must be wrong with me. I've certainly thought this, and I've had that insecurity, and, you watch others around, and, the reality is sometimes we have self-doubt and we have feelings of inadequacy, but we look at other people and we think, now, why does she get to have someone and I'm this and I'm that? And how come that, she gets chosen and I didn't get chosen, the whole thing. And even when we overcome that in a great, from a great significant way, it can still pop up from time to time. But part of the reason that these beliefs even exist is societal pressure, and that we have to look a certain way, be a certain age, do certain things, be this or that, or not be this or not be that, in order for us to actually be attractive to men. When, first of all, there's 8 billion people in the world. Are we literally saying that every single one of them likes the exact same thing? It doesn't even make sense. But in our mind, when we're feeling some way about ourselves, myself included, we tend to think, oh, if I'm not this, then nobody's going to like me. If I'm not that. And let's be real, most of that has to do with how we look. No one really thinks, oh, if I don't have a college education, no one's going to like me. If no woman thinks that. No, very few women think, oh, if I don't have, a 6-figure income, then no guy's going to like me. We all think, if I don't have this, if I'm not this size, and I don't have this butt, I don't have this breast, and I don't have this and that, or long hair. Come on, I've thought that. If I don't have long hair, then no guy's going to like me. And if I'm not smaller, or if I'm overweight, no guy's going to like me. And so these things are just pervade our mind, because some people are saying that. Some people do feel like that, but not everybody. We've all seen women who are maybe not the beauty queens. Maybe they're overweight. Maybe they're whatever. And they're still have a husband. They're still, with someone who loves them. So it's really a false reality. And then, but it can be spurred on when people are like, well, why aren't you married yet? And what do we think? We think not pretty enough, not thin enough, not, feminine enough. Oh, come on. Let's link that episode. We talked about, women being too masculine, particularly Black women, but I'm not anything enough in order. When the reason that you're not married yet is simply maybe because God has not ordained that for you to happen yet, because you are part of his plan. You are not forgotten. Being single has nothing to do with your capabilities or your worth. And some people are single because of personal choice. Some people are single because of timing. Some people are single because, and some people will always be single because there's an imbalance of men versus women. Sin has created that imbalance. There are a lot of men who are in prison, and obviously there are women who marry men in prison, but that's typically not most women who do that. And so there's a lot of impact of sin that we don't think about. And so we really need to reject this idea that our, relationship status defines our value. And if we don't have a relationship, then we're not good enough or whatever enough. There's something wrong with us. We need to really learn how to accept ourselves. Because if we don't accept ourselves, then you may end up in a relationship, but it's typically going to be one that's unhealthy, because that person sees that you don't accept yourself. And so then they think, oh, she'll accept anything from me. So we'll probably do a whole episode about that at some point. Myth number 3 is all the good men are taken. Okay. All the good men aren't taken. I do I need to say more than that? I think that all the good men are in relationships. It can create a sense of hopelessness and lead to, a settling for less. But This myth really arises from a lot of negative dating experiences, or from um, focusing on men who actually are unavailable. And it can create this scarcity mindset, which then, of course, is not conducive to healthy dating. Many of us are, number one, not anywhere where we actually can be found. I mean, y'all heard Onita like joking on me about actually being outside the house. I work from home. There's no one here to date in my house. And so actually going out, going to the museum, going to the park, going to events, getting out of your comfort zone and out of what's familiar, and going and doing new things can make you accessible to many of the good men who are out there who are also looking for good women. The second thing is that often how we define good can be a little bit sketchy. So there may be good men right around you who maybe they don't dress that well, or maybe they don't look the way that you thought they were going to look. And God forbid, they aren't as tall as you think they are supposed to be, or they don't make as much money as you would hope that they would make. So you don't consider them good. Well, then you probably are going to miss out on a lot of good men, or at least one, because one's all you need. So you might miss out on some good men because your definition of good is a bit shaky and worldly, versus God, what is good to you? Lead me to what is good to you. Lead me to someone who is good to you, good for you, good for me, will be good to our children if we have them. I mean, I won't be having any, but good to our children. Like, tell me what good is and then lead me to that. So, we can think about the fact that many women are still getting married and they're finding partners, but they're putting themselves in a place to be found, and they're not compromising. I'm not saying compromise your values or your standards, but assess your standards to make sure that those are standards that God has given you and not standards that you have given you, because you can be twisted, distorted in your picture of what standards should be. I just heard a story about a woman who said to a guy, "You're the best guy I have ever dated or met. You're so good to me. You're so amazing to me. You're so wonderful. You're just the best guy." And this guy wanted to marry her, and she ended up dumping him because he wasn't tall enough. She could not get around the fact that he wasn't as tall as, she wanted him to be. And so, are all the good men taken, or have you passed over some good men? Now, of course, you want to wait for a good man in God's eyes, but let's reevaluate what we say is good, and then let's make ourselves available for that. Myth number 4 is I have to settle to avoid being alone. I told you we're going to talk about settling, and I have not been putting these up there for you all, so let me do that. I have to settle to avoid being alone. Let me go back. The first one was I need a relationship to be happy and fulfilled. The second one is if I'm still single, something must be wrong with me. The third one is all the good men are taken. And now we're on number 4. I have to settle to avoid being alone. Fear can drive us to settle for relationships that aren't fulfilling. I mentioned before that, something that I've been saying as far as like to engage women is that I want to help women, single women, create joy in their solo journey so they never settle for less in their relationships. And I see women settle for less to be in a relationship. And this actually can lead to long-term unhappiness versus temporary, because you're single today. It doesn't even mean that you're going to be single tomorrow. Your singleness can be absolutely temporary. I mean, most people who are married were single temporarily. And you were like, well, I wish mine happened sooner. Sure. I'm not mad at that. I have had that same wish. And in many respects, I still do, but I also know that God kept me in this space for a purpose, for my purpose. And for all that I get to do with that, I just think there's no safer place to be than in the will of God. That's just an aside, but the pressure to, avoid loneliness can push people into settling for less than they deserve. And part of the dangers, there's so many dangers in settling. And this is different than the all the good men are taken thing where I said sometimes our definition of good is just sketchy. We're talking about unhealthy relationships that people settle for, people who are abusive, people who are unkind. That's a huge one for me. Huge. Kindness is so huge for me. People who are, lazy, people who don't treat them with love and cherish them. All of these things, people who aren't even godly. That's when I'm talking about settling, I'm talking about that people think they have to settle for these major value things in order to not be alone. Well, let me just tell you right now, I would rather be alone. I have broken up for reasons such as these value reasons. You will never truly, if you love the Lord and you want to serve him and you want a marriage that's honored and blessed by God, can you imagine a marriage that's honored and blessed by God? Like, just picture it for like 3 seconds. The bliss, the joy, the connection doesn't mean it's perfect. Push perfect out of your mind. But like both of you are serving God fully, wholly, surrendered to him. Bam! That's amazing. Do you really want just somebody? I appreciate the pressure, but there's emotional damage, there's psychological damage, there's even physical consequences to settling just to avoid being alone. So many people. There's so many people I know who wish they could just get out of their marriage. Boom. And it's like it never happened because they settled. It's better to be single and content than in a relationship that doesn't bring true happiness. There's so many benefits of being single: personal growth and freedom, and you can develop with God, you can travel, you can walk in your purpose, and there's nobody whose purpose is contrary to yours. So many things that God would want you to take advantage of as he has you in this season, rather than just sitting around longing and hoping and praying and desiring this relationship and then settling for something less than what he has for you. Embrace the time that you have as an opportunity. You can grow, you can explore, you can learn yourself, you can deal with some of your own trauma and sicknesses and emotional issues and all of that, so that when he comes, if he comes, that you're better prepared for it. The reality is that there's no one that I know who wouldn't say, I wish I had waited for a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Even if it was with the same person, but they were healthy and I was healthy. And then we could have the right relationship that we wanted. And settling will only ever lead to heartache in the long run. Myth number 5, I can change him if I just try hard enough. Well, I think that many people don't say that out loud, but it is a very common belief that with enough love and effort, one can change a partner's undesirable traits or behaviors. And this often leads to a relationship where one person is constantly trying to fix the other person because they're not meeting their needs. Essentially, they settled and now they're trying to fix the person to be what they settled for, be something other than what they settled for. Like, these things go together, people. And this can have an emotional toll on you if you try to do this. And the fact of the matter is that if they don't want to be fixed, they won't be. And not only will they not be the person that you need, but you'll spend all this other energy trying to make them into the person that you need. So you won't even be able to enjoy the supposed things that you picked them for, that you were like, oh, well, I like this, but this I don't like, but I'll try to fix that later. You're not even going to be able to enjoy the part that you did enjoy because you're so busy trying to fix this over here. And so I think about it like this. And I've never thought about this before, but the other problem with trying to fix someone is that you could actually be breaking them for the right person. Come on, girl. Come on. That's good. Y'all got to give me something for that. You might be breaking them for the person that's actually right for them. It's like, I was thinking, it's like putting a motorcycle engine on a moped. Motorcycle engine's good for a motorcycle, and you want to ride a motorcycle and has all of the components that you need for that engine to fit, for that engine to go where it needs to go, for the body of a motorcycle is bigger and stronger and can withstand all of the power that comes from that engine. But a moped, first of all, a motorcycle engine would probably top a moped over because there's just a small little thing. There's not enough protection for the rider. So a moped engine needs to be with a moped and with a person who wants to ride a moped, not with a person who wants to ride a motorcycle. You're not going to put a moped engine inside a motorcycle either. Those two don't go together. So a lot of times we're trying to change someone into what we need when they actually are who they need to be for the person that God intended them to be with. And there's someone over here that's for you, and they don't need to be fixed because they're for you. That's good stuff, man. I never thought about that before, but I love that. Stop trying to fix people. They're just not your person. They are just not your person. And you can't change them anyway. But what you can do is nag him to death so that he thinks all women are like that. So that he feels less about who he is. I'm not saying there aren't behaviors that all of us probably need to change in relationships. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about trying to just change how someone actually operates in life. And even if there are behaviors, then someone might like those behaviors and you, even if you don't. So let's just think about that is a myth that I can change him. And then even if you could change him, should you be trying to change someone to make them right for you if they really are right for someone else? So, and ultimately, people change because they want to change. So let's not sacrifice just to get into a relationship that that just to be in something. Let's not just get into something unhealthy with the goal of changing someone to who we want them to be. If you can't love them the way they are, literally the way they are when you meet them, and if they never changed anything, you said, I would still be happy with this person, then you need to stay away from them. And you need to find someone who aligns with your values, your goals, and respects you and accepts you. And you all have mutual respect and acceptance so that you can have a healthy relationship. You cannot change him if you try hard enough. Myth number 6, marriage will solve all my problems. I really want to just keep this short. Talk to 5 married women and ask them how many problems marriage has solved. Marriage doesn't solve any problems except that you don't live by yourself. And some people still do. It doesn't fix loneliness if you're in the wrong relationship. It doesn't fix insecurities for sure, because those are internal. It doesn't fix personal struggles. It doesn't fix anything but being in a relationship and not being in a relationship. Marriage actually exponentially, sorry, I just couldn't even think, exponentially grows many problems that you have. The things that were just a little bit annoying when you were dating, they become huge until you learn how to navigate them. And some people don't ever learn. And so those are problems the whole time. So while marriage is a partnership that can bring joy and support, it does not solve individual problems. It don't solve marital problems or relationship problems. You have to have personal growth and self-awareness to be able to navigate that and deal with those things for yourself as well as a couple. But being married doesn't fix the problem. It actually makes them worse until you double down and say, we're going to work on this. So one of the benefits of being single now is to be able to deal with your issues, recognize them, deal with them, so that you're able to build a healthier marriage when that time comes. Marriage is not a problem solver. Marriage is a beautiful institution that God has created for a purpose of communion, community, love, sex, bearing children, and having purpose that glorifies Him, but it's not a problem solver. And finally, number 7. Myth number 7 is I'm too old to find love now. I know I hear many people say this, and many people who are my age, by the way, which is, I'm like, and I can understand that, especially growing up, there was just this idea that, if you weren't married by 30, I told you about the girl who, the woman who was, kind of expressing her feelings on the post this morning, who's in her 30s. There used to be a time when if you weren't married by 30, then it felt like it was the end of the world. And apparently this is still the time that people feel that. But the truth is, people get married in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, even their 80s. People get married in their 80s for the first time, or even the second time. Doesn't matter. And we have, there is a reality around, for a lot of men, they can marry at any time and have children at any time. And a lot of times they do marry later and they're looking for these young girls. It kind of grosses me out. Let me just put that out there. It's like, okay, so you wasted all your young years and now you want this little girl to raise your children, and now you want to create this quote unquote legacy. Give me a break with that already. But it is that person's choice, both of them that decide. But the reality is there are plenty of men who want women their age. I don't want to say, something disparaging, because, young women deserve to have love, and I'm not opposed to that. But there are many men who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s who want women who are also in that age group for a variety of reasons. And, I've told you all, I'm on my journey of finding love, of being found by the right person, and that I believe God has given me the thumbs up that he is going to open that door into my life now, even though it was closed for the last, the rest of my adult life. But I prayed about it again this year and asked God specifically, and I believe his answer was yes. His answer was yes. Not I believe his answer was yes. His answer was yes. And so, I don't know when he's come. He can come tomorrow. That would be cool. Then I have something to share with you all in the next update when we go live. But I'm in my 50s. I will be 55 at the end of this year. And I still expect and know that now, that with God confirming that is still going to happen for me. But here's the other thing that I want to share is that if let's say I met someone tomorrow and we got married in a year. So I'd be 55. My mother is going to be 90 in a few weeks. If no tragedy happens, and most of my relatives live to be quite old. I'm like, I have, uncle. I mean, some, obviously, a lot of them, not obviously, you don't know that. A lot of them have passed, but a lot of them passed in their 80s. A couple of people were sick, and so they died early, like my father. But, I have uncles that are in their 80s, close to 90. My mother is will be 90 this year. If I live to be even close to that, I still have 30 plus years to be married to someone. That's a long time. That means I had all this time to enjoy and do the things and live the purpose that God had for me. And then I still get 30 years to be married to someone and share life and partnership and all that, which I still want. So sometimes we kind of lose focus on the fact that, it didn't happen, 10 years after I turned 18 or 20. But you still have 30, 40, 50, 60 years sometimes. A lot of times people are living older to have a relationship, to be married, to be in partnership with someone. So I encourage you to just remain open to love at any stage of your life. And age does not matter, because there are men your age. There are men who are younger who would want someone your age. There are men who are older who want someone your age. So it doesn't define your ability to find and experience meaningful relationships. So I just want to challenge you. Let's drop all of these myths. The myths that I need a relationship to be happy and fulfilled. No, you need to be happy and fulfilled in order to have a healthy relationship. If I'm still single, something must be wrong with me. No, if you're still single, then God has a plan for you. Let's get ready. And if something is wrong with you, fix it. Because being single is the best time to do that. All good men are taken. That is not true. There are many good men. But let's redefine, let's make sure that our definition of good aligns with God's. Oh, and let's put ourselves where men can find us. Myth number 4, I have to settle to avoid being alone. No, please don't ever settle. Because the reality is, if you settle to avoid being alone, you will end up being alone, but married. And being alone and married is much worse than being alone and single. Because if you're alone and single, you could always find someone and not be alone anymore. But if you're alone and married, you're kind of stuck. So myth number 5, I can change him if I try hard enough. You shouldn't try to change anyone. Be with the person that God fit for you. I don't necessarily think there's only one person, but like in the sense of soulmates and whatever. But I do believe if God has a plan, that God does have a plan for our lives. And therefore, there is a best person who will help that plan be fulfilled in our life and their life. And so be with someone who fits, not someone you have to fix. Number 6, marriage will solve all my problems. No, marriage will create other problems, bigger problems, and not solve the ones that you think it's going to solve. Number 7, and that's not to say marriage isn't beautiful. We know that it is if it's done in God's will, but marriage is a work of sanctification, really, that you have to now do in partnership with someone. So they're being sanctified, you're being sanctified, and y'all being sanctified together. And we all know sanctification ain't that fun. So imagine doing it in concert with somebody. And so marriage is beautiful, but marriage doesn't solve any problems. And I'm going to go back to that. Marriage will solve the problem possibly of you being alone. Yes. 9 times out of 10, it will solve that problem. Marriage may solve the problem of you not being able to have sex. Okay, probably will solve that. It doesn't mean it's going to be good, and then it just going to mean you're going to be in concert. It just means that you will be able to have it without, guilt, I guess. Marriage will solve the problem of possibly. That's what I'm saying. Possibly, it doesn't even really solve any problem completely, other than you not being single and having the same last name. So I think that marriage doesn't solve any problems. So let's just let that myth go completely. And number 7, I'm too old to find love now. No, you're not. As long as you're breathing, God still has a plan and a purpose. And just ask him what that is for you. I just want to read from Psalm 139. I'm going to read quite a bit of it, but you can turn there with me because I think it talks a lot about, this is just about God and his love and his plan for us. So as we close, oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, and I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost part of the sea, even there, your hand shall hold me. You shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall follow me, Even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. For you formed me in my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they would be more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. You got to read that for yourself. Because the reason that I chose to read that, I was just going to pick one or two verses. But then as I kept reading, I'm just like, connect with this idea that you are not forgotten by God because you're single. Like he knows your heart. He knows your love. He knows your gifts. He knows your purpose. Before you had a day, he counted them all out. And so just trust him. Trust his path for you. Marriage is beautiful. It comes from God. But if he has not chosen that for you now, or he hasn't chosen it for you yet, or he hasn't chosen it for you at all, he has great and marvelous, amazing things for you. So don't miss out on those because you're looking for what you don't have yet or what you want. I promise you, I'm not just saying this. I understand. And I felt that. Don't let these myths derail you. Get rid of them if you are thinking some of these things and just say, God, what does this verse say? Verse 17, I think it says. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, like God's thoughts, if you should count them, they would be more in number than the sand. How amazing is that? Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. Like he's literally saying on God's calendar, your days are fashioned. You think he doesn't know the longing of your heart? He does, and he cares, and he loves you. Trust him. Let go of these myths and misconceptions and trust him with your heart. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week with another recorded episode. And I hope that you pray about this. I hope you go back and read Psalm 139, verses 1 through 18. Check out our free and fabulous challenge because that will help you on this journey of getting rid of these myths, actually. And come to that interest meeting. We would love to see you. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless.